Welcome to the UK Travel Planning Podcast. Your host is the founder of the UK Travel Planning website, Tracy Collins. In this podcast, Tracy shares destination guides, travel tips, and itinerary ideas, as well as interviews with a variety of guests who share their knowledge and experience of UK travel to help you plan your perfect UK vacation. Join us as we explore the UK from cosmopolitan cities to quaint villages, from historic castles to beautiful islands, and from the picturesque countryside to seaside towns.
Welcome to the UK Travel Planning Podcast. In this episode, I speak to Rob Bruns, who with his family spent a month travelling England and Scotland in June 2022. Rob shares his tips for planning an itinerary that caters for every member of the family, plus the highlights of the trip, both destinations and experiences, best restaurants, accommodation, and much, much more. This was a really fun episode to record, and I'm sure you will enjoy listening to it as much as I enjoyed chatting to Rob. I started by welcoming Rob to the podcast. So I'm really, really happy to have you on the podcast, Rob. It's so lovely to see you again, because obviously we met you when you were in the UK. We were also travelling around the UK, and we actually managed to meet you at Whitby Abbey and then go and have some tea and cake, didn't we, which was fantastic.
Yeah, I think it was a contest to see who saw who first, right?
Absolutely. I don't know who it was. Who was it? Was it you or I can't remember now.
I don't either. All I know is that both Doug and I were like screaming at each other when we fight. So I don't know who screamed first.
So obviously you did the itinerary consult with us earlier on in the year. So we'd already met you before that. So I guess that was why. And we met quite a few of the people in the UK when we were there that we did the consults for. And actually, it was such a highlight for us to be able to do that. And so I'm so pleased that you've agreed to come on the podcast and have a chat about your itinerary and your visit to the UK and everything that you learned from that, because it's really valuable for listeners. And we get a lot of feedback from people saying how much they appreciate kind of that feedback from people who've actually just travelled around the UK that aren't me and Doug.
Other people do it too, right?
Yeah, exactly. That is just not me and Doug that travel around the UK. So, Rob, would you like to introduce yourself and just kind of give us a brief background of like who you went with, where you're from in the States, and a quick overview of your itinerary? That'd be great.
Sure. So I went with my lovely wife, Heather, and our then 11-year-old, now 12-year-old son, Beckett. Yeah. We actually started thinking of this trip back in 2019. And then, of course, stuff happened. And so we had a lot of time to plan. And I'm sure we'll talk about the benefits of having 2 more years to plan a trip like this. We are currently living in Columbia, Missouri, here in the States. The original plan was just to go to London for a week, actually. And then as the trip got, I don't want to say canceled, but postponed, it grew and grew and grew. And eventually we had 4 weeks. So our itinerary grew and grew and grew. So we ended up still landing in London, but we headed north quite quickly up into York. And then, as you said, we met on the coast at Whitby. We continued up through Durham, added Scotland to the itinerary as well, which was not our original plan. Stayed in Scotland for, I think, almost a week, and then headed kind of back down through the Peak District and the Cotswolds, and then wrapped back up in London for just about another week. So we had the pleasure and the good fortune to kind of turn some lemons into lemonade, as they say, and got to see quite a bit of the country.
And I'm so glad it did, because quite often, and I know it depends on time, a lot of people just kind of go over and spend the time in London. And it's something we say all the time. It's like, if you can get out of London, because London is not typical of the UK. And as you'll have seen when you travel around, you know, you meet so many different people, and the areas are different, and the foods are different, and the accents are different, as you know, from speaking to Doug and I, because we've completely different accents. So that's good. So obviously you're saying that to 2019 you started to plan. So how do you plan, Rob? Because I know you're very organised. We're very impressed when you sent us your itinerary.
I have my binder still in front of me.
Oh, wow.
No, I mean, so when it was first just a week in just London, we kind of already had what we wanted to see in London. I had been there, almost 30 years ago, and we were going to just hit kind of the main sites that probably a lot of people think of, and Harry Potter World, and we were just going to be happy that we got to go someplace and then come home. And then as things got postponed and we realized, we can add another week. We can save some more money up in this year and add another week. Let's add some more. We started with our Pinterest boards. Heather and I just started a Pinterest board of kind of like a wish list of places we would see. And then at some point I said, I bet you there's got to be some groups on Facebook about London and England. And that's kind of when we happened upon your group, actually. And joined. And then I was just like, oh my gosh, this is like the gold mine here. And just starting, reading about what other people were doing. And then those things got added to the Pinterest board. And in addition to, we're Harry Potter fans, of course. Yeah. So we had to research places there. And it just grew and grew and grew.
We've got quite a few, and obviously we've got the website, which I know you came across as well, and from the group. And we've put loads of Harry Potter stuff on because we just know how many people absolutely, they go to the UK and they really want to see all those Harry Potter sites. And when we spoke to you as well, I knew that was something that you'd really wanted to do. And I guess that kind of leads me into, because you were doing all that planning. And we often get asked this, like, how do you choose? And I'm honestly, Doug and I had this same issue because we were back for 12 weeks and obviously we've been to most places, but we sat down and like, okay, we've got 12 weeks. Where do we want to go? So for you guys, how did you choose where to visit when you were going over the UK? Bearing in mind, there's so many fantastic places to go to.
Yeah, well, I just saw somebody on the group, I think it was about a week or two ago, somebody had posted kind of a similar topic about, they got a map out and we're using the little kind of sticky note arrow things to kind of stick it around. Because, being from the US, where our country obviously is much larger, the first thing I didn't understand was, in relationship to where I live, how big is really the UK? How far away are really places? How long does it take to get from point A to point B? And so after we had our, giant Pinterest board of the gazillion places we wished we could go to, then the next step for me was I bought a map, a very large map that took up the whole kitchen table. And I started, with a pen and pencil and a Sharpie, starting to research, okay, where is actually this place? Because I really didn't know in relationship to other places. And I started just circling, labeling, and going, oh, okay, well, that one place I really want to go is completely far away from everywhere else. Like, we would have loved to go down to St. Ives. We would have loved to gone down to Dorset and checked out the southern coast. But as you start plotting it out on the map and you start thinking about how much time you actually have and the miles between, it kind of starts to materialize visually on what's really realistic and what's going to be too much to do.
I think that's such a good point, because it's really easy to try and think that the UK is small and therefore you're just going to try and cram too much in, and you can end up spending your entire time in a car. Yeah. Even just thinking about the places, because obviously we were up in Scotland and we went up to the Orkneys and we were right down at Land's End, but did the whole end to end. But, we divided that up because also the driving can be quite stressful in terms of some of those roads in Scotland and some of the roads in Cornwall. I mean, I didn't do the driving, I like to do it, but are pretty stressful because, they're single roads, and you've got to know to, you've got to watch out where there was lots of lambs and things on the road when we were there in May.
I have to admit, I loved the driving.
Yeah, well, that's really
I know everybody's like, you did. That was one of my favorite parts. And I mean, I think I'm just strange that way.
Yeah,
because I loved it.
It's really funny because, like, I'll really weirdly, I'll drive on the motorways, but I'm not too keen on those kind of country lanes. So I did kind of let Doug do most of the driving. I think I did some in Northumberland because I'm familiar with Northumberland. Mm-hmm. I certainly don't want to drive in some of the larger cities that would not be for me. And I know it's amazing. I mean, the fact that because obviously you drive on the different side of the road in America, so a lot of people get absolutely terrified about the thought of driving. So did you do all the driving? Or did Heather do some?
I did all the driving. She was ready in case of emergency to take over if she had to. But no, I mean, I was worried. I mean, you read the occasional horror stories of tourists over in the UK having, getting into accidents and worse. And so that, my mission was I wasn't going to be one of those people that was going to be on the news. And I did oh gosh, what's the name of the virtual driving program? I did do that. Yes. And that, I will tell you, that worked for me. Like after I did that a few times, like it was very interesting how my mind kind of like just made that adjustment. So I totally recommend using that. That kind of put me at ease.
That's really good to know, actually. And I'll feed that back to John because we talked, that was in podcast 11, I think, where I talked to 11 or 12, I should know, when I talked to John from Tripiamo. And that was exactly the point of why he came up with that whole concept, was to particularly prepare North Americans for, the driving in the UK and on other destinations in Europe. And that's really good to know that was such a positive, positive for you to prepare. And I think preparation is the key.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, and several people recommended, don't pick the car up in London. Which
no,
we didn't.
Absolutely don't.
Took the train to York, picked it up in a smaller town, drove around the neighborhood. After we picked the car up, I kind of practiced. We went to Sainsbury's out in the suburbs.
Did you get a manual or did you get an automatic?
Oh, automatic. I think I could have done the manual, but less stress.
It makes it a lot easier when you've got an automatic. I mean, I'm used to an automatic, and a couple of times we ended up with a gear stick, and I was a bit nervous with that. But Doug managed really well and went back into, because we have an automatic here in Australia, so it was a bit of a leap. Even though we drive on the same side of the road in Australia, it was still that leap to. So that's something I do recommend. If you are planning to drive around the UK and you're from North America, is that if you're used to an automatic, you make sure that you book an automatic.
Stay absolutely. With it. Save your money up and get the automatic.
Pay the extra.
Absolutely.
Absolutely worth it. So we know that you didn't only drive around, you also took the trains. And obviously when you were back, there's been some strike action in the UK. There's still been strikes. There's still strikes this month in October. So obviously that throws a bit of a spanner in the works. So how did you adapt your plans for that?
Well, I think whenever you're traveling, one of the keys, at least in our family, is always, the traveling is the fun. I mean, it's the experience. You got to enjoy the experience, whatever the experience may bring you. Yeah. And so we kind of just looked at it as, okay, it's a challenge. We're going to figure it out. And so, keeping abreast through your guys' Facebook group, just watching the news and just going, all right, well, what's our other alternatives? And so we hired a car to get from, I think it was towards the end there. So it was Oxford to London. We had a train booked and got the email. It was canceled and it was a strike day. And we're like, okay, well, can't take a train. What are the other alternatives? Cars, taxis, buses. And I kind of booked all three to hedge our bets. I mean, you just kind of have to roll with it and go, well, so we had bus tickets. And at the same time, we hired a car to drive us there. We stuck with the hired car because we didn't want to lug our luggage.
Yeah.
And, you always try to budget for those kind of emergency situations. And you kind of go, okay, what would you rather luggage on a bus for X amount of hours or spend 100 pounds more and be able to get there in 2 hours in the luxury of a car? And you make those trade-offs. So
absolutely,
just like everything else in life, it's a trade-off, and you just got to roll with it.
You have to do it, and I think you just have to be flexible, because sometimes, expect the unexpected sometimes. I mean, Doug and I we went to Highclere, and we were supposed to be handing our car back that morning and getting the train to Highclere. And actually the problem was it wasn't that there was a train strike. It was just that it was 42 degrees. And my mum, who we were going to meet at Highclere, decided it was going to be too hot for her. So they decided not to drive down. So we were going to be left with no transportation. So we just ended up having to go back to the car hire place, extending the lease of the car. It cost us a fortune, and then dropping it off in Birmingham Airport rather than we were going to drop it off in Exeter and get the train. So you just have to come up with, okay, this is plan A. We can't do it. What's plan B? And that's what we're going to go with.
Yeah, you're just going to know it's going to happen. Something's going to happen.
Exactly. That's it. So when you chose accommodation, you stayed in a variety of different places, and we did. Yeah. Would you like to talk through some of the accommodation options that you chose? And was there any kind of ones that stood out?
Absolutely. I mean, I think originally back in 2019, I was mostly looking kind of through booking.com. And then we had used Airbnb a few times here in the States. So I was like, oh, well, I just, my ignorance, I'm like, I assume they have that there too. So obviously got on there, and then I don't even know how I found out about Verbo. It was probably all the hours Googling everything that I finally happened across that. And so we did stay in, I would say probably 3 or 4 times was a Verbo, 3 or 4 times was an Airbnb. We had boards. You can make boards on there too, just like Pinterest. And oh my gosh, I had dozens of boards, and I would share them with Heather, and I'd be like, oh, look at this one. And I mean, again, we had 2 years to look at Verbos and Airbnbs. So, and we canceled a lot over those past 3 years too. And then I also, we knew we wanted to have some unique stays. And so again, just Googling, our big kind of wants or desires were, can we stay in a castle? Can you do that? And so we Googled about that. I always wanted to, I've watched a couple English shows about the Yorkshire Dales and farming, and it's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool to stay on a farm? Let's Google English farms and see what's out there. So a lot of it, again, was just spending that time researching, and I love to do that. And Heather can tell you the hours that I would spend, and I love to read. So one of the highlights that we found, we didn't end up staying in a castle, but we stayed in a place called Tripiamo House, which when we were over there found out that a lot of Scottish and English people hadn't heard of it themselves.
No, I hadn't.
Yeah, it's supposedly the oldest inhabited or oldest constant inhabited house in Scotland. It's just close to the border. I forget what the borderland there was called. It was like the Scotland border or something.
Yeah, the border area.
Yeah. And it was old and it was cool. It was more of a manor house, I would describe. It was one of Beckett's favorite places to stay because they had animals and pigs, and he got to touch his first pig, which was one of his personal highlights. But there was only I think 3 other people staying there at the time. And so we felt like we lived there for the evening, and we walked the grounds by ourselves in the evening, and they had a hedge maze. It was not the most luxurious place. It was old. The room was old,
but full of character.
Oh my gosh. We felt like we were living in a castle for the day. It was very cool.
That's amazing. I mean, we were just talking about our highlights, and sometimes it's staying in those places that are just different.
Yes.
We stayed in a glamping pod in far north Scotland.
I wanted to do that.
Oh, it was fantastic. We loved it. And then we stayed on a shepherd's hut on Bodmin Moor.
I saw that.
Cornwall, which was fantastic, and those are the memories, aren't there? Those places that you stay that just have that little bit more character to
yes.
them. We really liked staying in bed and breakfast. And because, in meeting the local people and enjoying the full English or the full Scottish breakfast, not that I do that every day, not necessarily do walk-in. I'm more an afternoon tea kind of person.
Yes. We got hooked on that there too.
I guess we could have a chat about that then, in terms of your favorite foods when you're over there. What did you enjoy trying?
There's nothing we didn't love. I mean, this is just kind of our philosophy as a family when we travel. We get just as excited about, going to a new restaurant and sitting down and having that kind of experience as we do going to the little Sainsbury's on the corner and walking around the supermarket for, an hour just looking at the stuff on the shelves. Yeah. And tonight we're going to eat in. What can we find that we've never seen or had before? But, we did try the haggis up in Scotland.
Yes.
And all three of us loved it. You have to try it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
say that to everybody because it's like you got to try it, and people go, oh no, once you know what it is, people go, oh no, I'm going to try it.
You just don't think about it.
No, don't think about it. And honestly, we go to Edinburgh. Every time we go to Edinburgh, we go to Macca's Mash Bar. I love Macca's.
Oh God, we love that place. Yeah, we went there because of you, and it did not disappoint. It was great.
No. That's what I said to everybody. You've got to go to Macca's Gourmet Mash Bar and just have the haggis there, because it's my favourite, absolute must do when I go to Edinburgh.
Yeah, it was great. Well, and Beckett, the markets in London, we fell in love with Camden Town. We definitely that was the place for us to stay. I didn't know it when I picked it. It was kind of on a feeling, and we absolutely loved that area. And we must have been down to the Camden markets, 3-4 times to eat. Borough Market, Beckett claims that was the best mac and cheese he's ever had in his life.
Well, you can't go to either of those markets and leave hungry.
Oh, it's my gosh. Yeah, I mean, I could just stay in the markets.
Yeah. No. It's like the problem is when you go, it's like you're just trying to choose. It's just trying to choose. What do I choose?
It's overwhelming. I mean, it is overwhelming at the beginning. I mean, Heather, the first time we went to Borough Market, was just like, because it's busy. And then just the amount of stalls and halls and little nooks and crannies. And you're like, well, what do you want to eat out of this gazillion choices?
Exactly. How do you choose?
Oh, yeah. How do you choose?
Well, next time we're going to do a food tour of Borough Market. That is top of my list when I'm in London to go and do that, because I think we did a food tour when we were in Paris with Devour, and I've never done a food tour before. It was something that was on our list to do, and they invited us to go and do a food tour of the Latin Quarter in Paris, and it was one of the highlights of our trip in Paris. And so that is something I'm definitely going to try when we're in London. I've actually just published an article about the best food tours and what's available. And the one in Borough Market is absolutely top of my list, because exactly what you say, you go around Borough Market and you don't know what to try because there's so much. Yeah. And I think having the benefit of somebody taking you around and explaining, and also introducing you to the people who are running the stall and the background of the food, I think that would be really interesting as well.
That sounds fabulous.
Yeah. So afternoon teas. We have to talk about
my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to think of where we had our first one. Where did it all begin? But after the first one, well, I think it might have been actually with you guys in Whitby, actually.
Oh, okay.
When we were up at the Abbey and you guys kind of invited us to tea and for chatting. Yeah. I don't think we were quite aware of the whole ritual before then. I mean, I had heard about tea, but I think that was our first one. And after that, we were like, so you can just randomly just have tea whenever you want. And so I think after we left Whitby, we drove through, I'm going to look at my binder. Oh, I think it was Helmsley.
Yes.
And we actually found a parking space when we went to Helmsley. I know you said it was crowded.
we were very disappointed. I actually just recorded a podcast episode with Sinead all about the best day trips from York, and that was one of the points, one of those things that I brought up where I said we didn't get a parking space.
We did, well, and only because when we went to pick up the rental car, I swear I had requested something a little bit larger, not too large, but when we showed up. And the gentleman took us up to the parking lot. There was like only one car sitting in the parking lot. And it was this little tiny Beamer, BMW.
Yeah.
That was like an inch off the ground and didn't even look like it was going to fit the three of us plus our suitcases.
Oh, wow.
So there was a temporary moment of panic when we saw how small it was. But it ended up, and here's another recommendation. You got to try to figure out, if you're renting a car, is it going to fit all your people and your stuff? But go as small as you think you can go, because that car ended up being a great tool because it was small and I could fit into a lot of places that I think if we would have gotten the car that I thought we were getting, there's no way I could have parked in a lot of places I ended up parking. But I think that was the second place we had tea. And I think it was at a tea house that was actually called Beck's. I think it was in Helmsley. And her son is Beckett. So we had to go into Beck's. And then we were just like, we need to try every tea place from now on everywhere we go. And so. And
I know you said the one at Chatsworth House was your favorite, wasn't it?
Oh my gosh. That place was awesome.
Yeah. Chatsworth is amazing, isn't it? Isn't it fabulous?
The house, at the time, the Duke, I guess it's the Duke that's living there.
Yes, speaking Duchess.
They had all this modern art out on display within these old rooms. And so it was like this really cool mixture of modern and old together. And then the gardens, we love gardens. We love nature and being outside the gardens. You could spend the whole day just in the gardens. And then we had tea on top of it. And that was the best tea we had. The food was obviously amazing. The people, we asked our waitress, we're like, I feel like we're eating too fast. And she's like, you kind of are. You should slow down, enjoy. And as Americans, Americans and both of us being teachers who only get 20 minutes to scarf down lunch every day. Yeah. We're just kind of used to eating fast.
Yeah.
Or faster.
Yeah.
And she was so kind and was like, sit back. You've got this table for 2 hours. This is an experience, a celebration. Yeah. And we're like, oh, okay. And you'd really, and plus you got to have room to eat everything. So
absolutely. There's always a lot, isn't there?
Yes.
There's always a lot of food.
Oh, but it was fantastic. Just the service and the attitude and the friendliness. And we tried about 3 different teas. Yeah.
It's we did go to Chatsworth House, which is owned by the Duke and Duchess of Devonshire.
That's it.
I think Devonshire teas then. So, when you go back to the UK next time.
We're already planning.
Well, a really good time to go, I don't know how it works with school holidays for you guys, is actually that run up to Christmas, because Chatsworth, every year they do a different theme and they decorate the house, and it's magical. Talk about getting yourself into the Christmas spirit. We went in 2019 Christmas, and the theme was around the world. So each room was decorated for different destinations, and it was magical. Honestly, you would love it, Rob. Beckett would love it. Heather would love it. And Derbyshire in the winter time, it's
you're giving me goosebumps. I'm like, and we usually have a week and a half to 2 weeks off on either side of Christmas.
Yep.
And as Beckett gets older and more into everything teenagers do, the summer is going to get a little bit more difficult in the near future. And I think we both would love to sneak in over a Christmas break, because I can't imagine some of the places we visited during the holidays. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm just thinking about York and York Christmas market as well. Would be amazing. So should we do a quick kind of run through of, because obviously it was 4 weeks, so
yeah, it was a long time.
You did a lot, so I guess it's kind of run us through your itinerary and the highlights of each place as you went.
Sure, absolutely. So, like I said, we pretty much started off in York, and, that was on people's recommendations. I mean, being a part of the group and reading what other people had done, in all the comments. I mean, people are so great sharing their experiences and commenting. And I remember the first post I made about our itinerary, just you get such immediate great input. So we started in York on people's recommendation, and then it was awesome. It's one of Heather's favorite spots. She's a social studies teacher, history teacher.
Yep. Oh, she'd love it.
Oh, she was nuts about York. I mean, we were all nuts about York, but the history, the medieval architecture, the shambles. I mean, who doesn't love the shambles?
Yeah. Exactly.
The feeling that you get there, that you are within this old city, is just amazing. Where did we go? Oh, the pub with the Roman ruins in the basement there. Oh my God. And it's so random. I'm not sure everybody always knows about these little things. But again, when you have 2 years to Google and research, you pop up these little things. So,
when we went to, because I'd not seen the Roman bath ruins, and I went to visit because it was a recommendation of Sinead in our podcast. I think it's podcast episode 3, when I interviewed Sinead about visiting York. And I actually went to visit, and I was talking to the curator of the museum, and about 4 or 5 people came down the stairs, and I'd just been saying to them that I had a podcast, and the guys just happened to mention to the people coming down the stairs, "Oh, you don't happen to have a podcast as well?" And the girl said, "Oh no, but I heard about this place on a podcast."
Oh my gosh.
And I was like,
was it mine?
I was like, that might be my podcast. And she was like, "Oh, I don't know. I'll show you it." So she showed me on her phone, and I went, "Yep, that's my podcast."
That's awesome.
Honestly, it blew the guy, the curator, was like, "I can't, that's fantastic." So I actually got her to do a little video when I just interviewed her, and she said, we came here because we heard about it on your podcast, and we were really interested to see, places that aren't necessarily.
Yes.
Kind of those, I hate the term hidden gems, but you know what I mean.
I know.
Aren't necessarily on those top 10 lists that you see everywhere. That are, and that was the beauty of talking to Sinead in that episode about visiting York, because Sinead knows the city really well. She's lived there for years. So she was able to share that sort of information. I didn't know about it, and I visited York dozens of times.
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't know it was there.
No. Did you go to the House of Trembling Madness?
Oh, we did. Oh, we certainly did. Yeah, we went up to the back room.
Yeah.
And we had ourselves some platters and some cider, and what a cool room up there. Every time we went someplace, we're like, we cannot believe we're here. This is like a movie set, or it's like Disneyland, but this is real. Like, people live here and do their daily lives here. Actually, I just read in my binder. Yes, House of Trembling Madness. It's on the itinerary list here. The Jorvik Viking Center was really cool. What a cool way to teach people history.
Exactly. Well, I was a history teacher before I started doing this, and I love that sort of thing. I mean, that's the way to teach, isn't it? That's the way I used to teach history. I used to do a lot of art, a lot of drama, a lot of, I remember teaching the kids about the Romans, and we set up a Roman banquet. We even had a vomitarium set up at the back of the classroom, because that's the way to teach it, isn't it?
Exactly. Heather would be totally with you on that.
Absolutely.
And let's see. Then we headed, thanks to your itinerary review, after York, we were going to just head to Whitby, but you gave us some great ideas of kind of a road trip on our way there. And so we kind of skipped Knaresborough and Harrogate at the time, but we did hit them on our way back down later in the trip.
Yeah.
But we knew that Helmsley.
Yeah, Helmsley.
It was a Friday, and I think you had alerted us to maybe that it was market day or something. And so we went there and went through Pickering, Thornton.
It was a public holiday. That
was the Jubilee weekend and the school holiday. It was,
So,
it was busy.
So it was busy.
Yeah. But we loved it, because we were just like, oh, we're part of the hustle and the bustle and all the excitement. Thornton Liddell, because there was a thatched, and here's another random thing. I think Heather there's kind of an iconic picture of a thatched house in Thornton Ladale.
Yeah.
I knew nothing about it. She showed me the picture. I'm like, okay, I'm going to find out where that is. Let's go see that house. I don't know where it is. Saw it on the map, realized, oh, it's along our route. Let's go stop and see it. We stopped in town for, I think, half an hour, took a little walk, found the house. It's along this lovely little babbling brook, sat down on the bench. There's other, I think, locals hanging out in the grass, and we just sat down and, pretended we were one of them and just enjoyed a nice little break there. So we did a lot of little stops, even between the big stops, which was fabulous.
And sometimes those are Thornton Ladale is always one that Doug recommends because because of that house, because it's so beautiful and you've got the brook. And again, it was because we were there. I think we were kind of following.
I think we were that day because I kept seeing your Facebook post.
Yeah, because I think we were like kind of behind each other, and it was a beautiful day, and there was kids playing in the brook, and it was lovely. Rather than that I'm going from A to B, you might as well. There's so many places between A to B to stop off on.
Stop and see what's going on. You can always decide, well, there's not much going on. Jump back in the car and keep going. Exactly. You don't have to stay there long.
And that's also one of the advantages of visiting in the summer. When you did visit, is obviously we seem to have daylight forever.
Oh my gosh, that was so weird. I mean, especially when we got up into Scotland. Oh my gosh, that was messing with our minds there at the beginning. You're like, it's 10 o'clock and it's still light. What's going on? But what an advantage. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And then
perfect time.
Yeah.
Perfect time.
And then the sun starts coming up and the birds are starting to sing at 4 a.m. And you can't help but get up and want to go only because, you're already excited about being there. And then the birds are up.
And you've got a whole day ahead of you when you've got all this daylight. And you think, wow, how much I'm going to be able to do so much.
Yes, and that was great.
So you went on to Whitby, obviously where we met, and you had a look around Whitby.
And we stopped at Goathland too. Speaking about Harry Potter. We had a stop at Goathland and we got there literally 5 minutes before the train pulled in. So
wonderful.
We had a lot of little lucky things like that. But headed on.
You have to do that train trip next time.
Well, the one in Yorkshire.
The North Yorkshire one.
Yes, I've seen that one.
Goathland, goes to Whitby. So we were, I think we were in Pickering when it left. We also went to Goathland as well. And then, so you can book that and do that steam train day. I know I was talking to Sinead about it for the other podcast about day trips. And that was her number one, actually, was doing that North Yorkshire Moors Railway. Doug's been on it before, and he's like, yes, we definitely have to do that next time.
We were kind of torn between originally thinking about how much train travel we wanted to do versus how much driving we wanted to do. I love the fact that we decided to do a lot of driving because we went to a lot of random places that I think probably most people don't go to.
Wouldn't have gone to.
But we also love trains.
That one, and that train trip, it's a round trip. So you park your car and jump on the steam train, go up, and then go back. So it's even perfect. So a perfect day out.
It's going on the Pinterest board.
I thought it might be.
Whitby was great. What a cool little fishing village. Again, it was crowded.
It was very busy.
But again, we kind of liked the crowds. We don't mind the crowds. So it made it exciting for us. Did the Abbey is beautiful. Our first fish and chips at the Magpie, thanks to your recommendation.
The Magpie, yes, you were at the Magpie at the same time.
Oh my God. I think that's when I really kind of made a scene when I walked up the stairs and saw you and I was like, there they are. But that was our first fish and chip experience. I know there was a post earlier on Sunday about your first fish and chips or best one. And we had 5 or 6 of them and they were all, all good.
I saw that. I did see that you tried quite a few. The Magpie is kind of so famous. And it was the fish. I love the fish and chips. I'm not a massive fish eater, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the food there was really good. And because it's just so famous as well. It's one of those, have to go to the Magpie when you go to the beach.
And you kind of have to, I think, balance, finding those, like you said, hidden gems or off the beaten road. But then, go ahead and try the more the famous, well-known things too. I think trying to find a balance.
There's a reason why they're so famous. That's what I was saying. There's a
exactly.
So that's it.
Then we drove up the coast. We are avid seashell hunters and beachcombers here in the U.S., so it was important for us to hit some beaches. So we went to Seaham. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Seaham.
Went to Glass Beach and Seaham Beach and found some sea glass and some really cool rocks.
It's very famous for it.
Yes, it was a freezing day with wind and but we loved it and just spent a lot of time on the beach. Had afternoon tea there again.
Of course.
And then we headed to Durham. Heather believes, and we still need to do more research, but Heather believes she's got some distant relatives. She does have a little English on her side of the family. And so we had done not as much as we wanted to, but we wanted to go to Durham for that reason. And also more Harry Potter locations at the cathedral, right? I think it was.
Yes.
Which was really cool.
It's a lovely city, another very historic.
And quieter, again. I think, compared to York, it was definitely more peaceful and slower. So it was kind of a nice change.
Yeah.
So at some point, where was the bookstore you guys had recommended? Was that after Durham?
Okay. That's it, and Alnwick. Yeah, Barter Books in Alnwick.
So when we left Durham, we headed there. I mean, there were so many things you guys recommended that we totally incorporated. And we all love books and reading. And Beckett, oh my gosh, he could have spent more time. He bought himself some books from there. And so thank you for that, because that was another cool off the beat thing.
It is. And Barter Books is, it's located in what was the old Victorian railway station.
Yes, with a little train going around.
Yeah, it's got a lot of character. The murals, I think it's like the largest or the second largest secondhand bookstore in Europe. It's also worth eating there because the food at their cafe is always really tasty, and you get to sit in booths like you're on a train. So that's really cool as well.
We didn't do that
in the waiting room. Yeah. So that's really, and also, if you're going back in winter, they have the fires going in that first room when you walk in, so that you can
sit down
up with a book. Yeah.
Well, and it was cool to be. You don't want to be like among the regular people, but, you feel like you're trying to assimilate into, the culture. It's not a touristy place. It's just normal people going about their lives and you're hanging out with them. So we like that a lot. We did go to Alnwick Castle again, Harry Potter connection.
Yeah. Alnwick Castle. Yeah.
What a cool castle. A little on the hokey side, a few of the things there, but I understand why, but Beckett and I took our broomstick flying lessons. And
Harry Potter stuff.
It was cool. I mean, if you're a Harry Potter nerd, you cannot pass it up at all. So we were glad. And then we headed up to Edinburgh, which never was on our itinerary at the beginning. And in fact, I think we kind of added it late. And we thought,
I'm glad you did.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. What again? Like how could we not have done that? That was my first experience of driving in a large city. It was rather scary because there was lots of construction going on. They're ripping up some of the main streets to work on the trolleys or.
Yeah, the trams. Yes, they're doing the tram line. Yeah, so there's a lot of work going on at the minute around that. So I know Doug found that quite challenging as well when we picked up the hire car.
That was stressful because the nav would say go to the right, but there was a big fence.
You could exactly. It's like, what am I going to do?
We went around in a lot
that was
of
a bit where I had to do a lot of navigation to help Doug with that. And also that was the first destination we went to on a trip. So it was the first time I picked up a car.
See, that would have stressed me out.
And it was manual.
Oh my gosh. That would have, I'm a pretty calm person, but I think that would have pushed me because it took both Heather and I to kind of survive that. So, but we did.
But how many days did you spend in Edinburgh itself? Because
I think we spent, let's see, 1, 2. We spent 3 days. We decided to spend 3 days.
Wow.
And that's when the weather kind of turned a little bit. It was a little bit colder. It was rainy. The first day it was pouring, and we had booked a Harry Potter walking tour, in Edinburgh, which was fantastic. I'm not 100% everything on the tour was true, but oh yeah, but we had a blast. It was pouring down rain. We were soaking wet. It was cold, but we were like happy as clams, as they said. We were just like, this is wonderful. I mean, that's kind of what we expected in Scotland. We were ready, like bring on the rain and the wet. Like we're totally okay with this. So that was,
and the fact it's so changeable as well. I think it's really, because we were in Edinburgh in May, and the first day we got there, we got sunburned.
Oh my gosh!
And the second day we were covered head to foot because it was torrential rain. So
yeah, I mean, it's kind of like they have the saying here in Missouri. You know, you just wait 10 minutes and the weather will change, right?
Yeah, change.
Yeah,
exactly.
Of course, we ate at the Maker's Mash Bar and had our haggis, and then another random thing. And again, just a product of Googling and having a kid. I think that's another kind of important thing I really haven't mentioned, is trying to find that balance of what the adults are going to enjoy and want to do, and realizing that you're also carting your child or children around and trying to find that balance, because we knew, 4 weeks is a long time. Heather and I were surely up for that, but we didn't know we travel quite a bit. And Beckett has traveled ever since he was an infant. But 4 weeks, that was a new challenge and unknown. And so we were very thoughtful about, okay, well, we're going to drag him to another castle, which he may or may not find as cool as we do. So what else is there available to balance and show him that, we're also thinking of you and what you might enjoy. So in Edinburgh, I had discovered the Camera Oscura, which is like a really cool visual optical museum of sorts. And both had,
and it's quite old.
Yes. And they've got some really cool stuff there that all three have actually, we loved it and enjoyed it. Yeah. There's a little chocolate factory store there. I wouldn't even call it a chocolate. Well, I mean, it is, but it's very small, and you could go and it was like an hour and a half, and we got a little education on chocolates, and we made our own chocolates. And so while it wasn't, uniquely British, it was something that we knew, well, he would obviously enjoy. Yeah. And all three of us, enjoyed chocolate as well. So I think that's really important if you're having kids with you to.
Absolutely. It's, as you say, it's that balance, isn't it? Of what I want to do, but also got to think about keeping them interested, engaged, and not bored, because it's, especially in the UK where there's a lot of the history side of stuff. It's like, how do I keep that so that I don't kind of overdose them on too
and then
much
they
history.
Kind of shut off and they're like, okay,
exactly.
I'm done.
Exactly.
The next thing, the next place we went was actually kind of the seed of this trip. Gosh, probably, 7-8 years ago. Because Heather has always been fascinated with the UK. So I think 7, 8, God, it was maybe 9 years ago. I bought her one of those ceremonial titles and, like square meter of land at a castle in Scotland.
Yeah.
Kind of as not as a joke, but, as a, here's your little piece of Scotland. I bought one for myself. Actually, gosh, I don't know if Beckett was even born yet, so it might have been longer ago. And I told her, I said, someday I'm going to take you there. Because it's Dunan's Castle up in Dunan, Scotland. And this couple from London many moons ago had purchased this castle, which had gone through a couple series of being built, rebuilt, ruined, fires. Okay, try. And they bought it, and they're been working on restoring it now for years. And one of the ways they raise money is to sell these ceremonial titles.
Great idea.
And part of it, they say is, if you ever make it here in person, we'll give you a free tour. And I'm like, okay, someday we're going to do it. Well, we finally did it. And so from Edinburgh, we drove to Dunan's. We had tea again. We had tea again, got our tour, stood on our ceremonial plot and got pictures, and kind of spent the morning, early afternoon there. Again, it was kind of rainy and chilly, but we had tea under this tent awning, just the three of us by ourselves in this idyllic setting. And again, it was one of those like, I can't believe we're just sitting here in the middle of the wilderness in Scotland eating tea. That was great.
You'll have to share one of those photos, Rob, and I'll put that in with the show notes.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. We'll put in, obviously, the show notes to all the destinations. We'll include all the destinations that you've talked about. So any photos that we can put in will be great. So that would be a lovely one to have.
We took a few hundred.
Yes. Yes, I know. I'm still sorting out.
Oh my gosh! It's trying to make a photo book of 4 weeks. I can't imagine doing it for 12.
No, I know it's quite a lot.
And then we headed up to Fort William.
Yep.
Or Fort Williams. Is there an S?
Fort William?
Yeah. Okay. No S.
Fort William.
To take the Jacobite train.
Jacobite train. Yeah.
Yes, which had been on our wish list from years ago. So again, Harry Potter. I think was our bedtime story for Beckett and I for I don't know how many years. Like that's just what we read every night before he fell asleep. So we read all the books straight through.
Yeah.
Watched all the movies after we read each book because you can't see the movie until you read the book. And so when I realized, oh my gosh, you can literally take a train over the viaduct that's actually in the movie. There's no question. We're doing it. So we did it and
it's brilliant.
We loved it. And and here's another scary thing about planning these trips and deciding to do things. You get on the internet and you start reading people's reviews and experiences. And this happened several times with all sorts of random things like, oh, this place is great on Vrbo. Well, for us, it was not. And you go back and forth and you see these opposing and you start doubting yourself and you got to realize that everybody's different.
Yep. Day
to day things happen. But I'll tell you that we had a fabulous time on the train trip. It was great. It is a steam locomotive. So yes, it's going to smell like a steam locomotive.
Absolutely.
I would read the comments and people are like, it smelled. I'm like, well, they are burning coal.
That's it. It's a steam train. It's going to, and that's that sound.
Oh, the sound, the smell, everything. People, you got to realize that's how it works.
Exactly. That's how. And you go over the Glenfinnan Viaduct. You get that fantastic scenery on the way to the lake.
Unreal.
Then you come back. You stay a couple of hours there, and then you come back. And then you could do what Doug and I did. I don't know if you did this. You might have done. Jump in your car and then
we were going to. Yes, we were going to, and I forget why we didn't. But you had recommended it, and it was on the list to do. But Malik was great too, and I think the Vrbo host had given us some pointers about. As soon as you pull into the station, jump off the train because there's going to be everybody else is going to jump off the train at the same time. And it's a very small town and there's not a lot of places to eat. And he gave us a recommendation. I wish I could remember the name. If I looked on a map, I probably could find the name. But we jumped off the train and we headed straight to another fish and chips place.
Yeah.
And sat down, had a great lunch, had time to visit. They have like another Harry Potter little store there.
Yes, they have.
Which was very cute. We were always trying to find, do they have anything new? But it was a great little stop and visit. And then the train trip back, trying to find different scenes from the movie of the island where Dumbledore was buried. And, it was fantastic. And we brought snacks. You have, they serve you tea.
Yes.
But we went to good old Sainsbury's and we also stocked up on
absolutely
Mr. Kipling. Is that the right?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Cakes.
Oh, yeah. Little Battenbergs and little Bakewells. Yep. So you can bring your own food, which is great.
We took some Bertie Bott's
oh, God.
Jelly
no.
Bean. Yes.
Did you get a boogie?
We did. And then, and I think I got earth and I got dirt. I think. And Doug got sick. The vomit one. But it was really funny because there was obviously the two of us sat, and then there was two couples sat on the opposite us on the floor, and we were sharing it. We were sharing them with them as well. It was really funny. It's like, let's see what we've got. I think think I got grass a bit too
Oh,
often
my
as well. I
goodness.
don't know.
I love the smell,
yes,
but not the taste of grass.
But it was kind of like, oh, we're on here. We have to do it. We have to do the Bernie Bott's experience as we're on the train, like pretending we're going to Hogwarts.
That's awesome. Well, you made me think of another thing. You know, the people that are there around you. I have to tell you, everywhere we went, people were so friendly and kind. And then when they heard us talk, were so fascinated by our accents, which just cracked Heather and I up because we were fascinated by all of their accents. But, you know, if you sit on a certain side of the train, sometimes your view isn't as great. And, we had just lovely people that were like, oh, no, come over, lean over our table, come hang out with us so that you can get a good view. And people just loved to talk to us. And we loved to talk back, both being teachers. And so I think that's one of the things. I know you're going to ask me, like, what are some things that surprised you? And I think just the overall friendliness and welcome that we felt literally everywhere we went was just fantastic.
Lovely. That's lovely. Yeah.
Then we headed to Glencoe, of course, after Fort William. Oh my gosh. I want to go camping there and hiking there someday. What a gorgeous area.
I think Glencoe is probably for me one of my favorite places in the entire world.
I could see that.
Is. I've got Scottish heritage, and I don't know what it is about that area. There's something about that area that just speaks to me. And yeah, I actually read somebody the other day was we're talking about reviews, and said how I think they'd done one of those quite busy day trips up to the Highlands of Scotland. And they kind of were saying, they weren't very impressed by the scenery. And I was like, did you go through Glencoe? Because I cannot think I've ever spoken to anybody who hasn't gone to Glencoe and been really a bit lost for words.
Yes. No, I mean, the Scottish Highlands, and Heather will say the same. I mean, and my hairs on my arms are sticking up. That place is, like you said, there's something about it. It is magical. I've heard people talk about the Scottish Highlands and the magicalness of it, the way the plants, the ferns that grow on those hills sway with the wind, and it looks like the hills are like alive. It was like you're in a movie, like you're in the Lord of the Rings, and like there it is. I mean, we did not. What was it? Is it the Co River? Is that what it's called that goes through there? There's some river.
Will be, I think.
Beautiful river,
is.
And just we got to go back there.
It is really nice, and then you can do that drive. The James Bond drive, the Grenadine drive.
That was another thing that I wish we could have done.
Yeah. We'd started doing that a couple of years ago, but we're there in January, so obviously there was a lot of snow, and it was I was like, a bit scary. So this time we actually did the entire route with Doug. He drove that, which is brilliant. So I've got some video of that. I must actually share that. I'm busy going through all our videos because we did quite a lot when we're back. And I wish I'd next time I want to do that in winter, as long as it's not too snowy and icy.
I would love to see it.
Because that Glencoe in winter again is mind-blowingly beautiful.
It's like the calendar pictures you see, and you're like, that can't be real. Yeah. And it is.
Yeah,
it is.
It is.
We headed back down. That's when we headed back down to the border and stayed at Troquar House. Hopefully I'm saying that close to what it's supposed to be said. Had our Scottish breakfast there, which was lovely. And then, let's see. Oh, yes. So, again, thanks to the itinerary review and your recommendations, we headed down to Baslow.
Yes.
In the Peak District. I think, I'm trying to remember where we originally were going to stay. But then you kind of asked us what our goals were. And this is where we were like, okay, I think we need to stop and rest for a while.
Yes.
And so we wanted to stop someplace for 4 or 5 days and just be. And you had recommended Baslow. I looked into Baslow. We switched. And Beckett, when I kind of asked him, like, what were your favorite memories of the trip? The first thing out of his mouth, like, that little town where they had the really good Italian restaurant. And I was like, Baslo? And he's like, yeah, I loved Baslo. And I'm like, okay, why would an 11-year-old love Baslo? Well, yes, there's a great little Italian restaurant there that we ate 2 nights in a row at because they have great pizza and pasta. But he's like, it was just nice and quiet and small. And we could, again, walk to, besides Sainsbury's and Tesco, we became quite constant visitors to the co-op markets that you would find. Mm-hmm. And we'd walk to the market and you'd go and we'd buy our food and we ate in a lot other than the Italian restaurant. It's also when we went to Chatsworth House and Bakewell and all the surrounding places. But again, we loved the feeling of just like pretending that we lived there for a while. But Baslo was a fabulous suggestion. So thankful that you guys mentioned that to us.
Doug's from
the
area, so that's where he kind of grew up, a little bit further south. But obviously, the Derbyshire Dales and the Peak District were somewhere that we just would go to all the time because it literally is on the doorstep. I actually took Doug for his 40th birthday. There's a Michelin-starred restaurant. I assume it's still Michelin-starred in that area. I won't name it, but I took him there for his first Michelin star experience because there's lots of really good restaurants in that area. Yeah. So it's good to know. I must get the name of that Italian restaurant from you, Rob, as well.
Oh, yes. I'll look on the map and find that. I forgot we also, when we were looking for unique stays, and it must have been before Baslo, but it's not, I can't find it in my itinerary, because we wanted to, I wanted to stay on a farm. Because there's, got a show on, I don't know, it's Channel 4 or ITV about, I think it was just literally called the Yorkshire Dales. And it was just about the people that live. And I think it was a series that ran for a couple of years. And I started watching it a couple years ago during COVID when we couldn't go. And I was trying to find everything English and British to watch.
So wasn't something like All Creatures Great and Small?
No, but I think, now that you say that, it was on one of the Channel 4s. It was in their video library online. And I just kind of randomly started watching
you liked it.
Oh, and it was like, it's gorgeous. We need to stay on a farm. And I can't remember where it is off the top of my mind. That was another one of Beckett's favorite places because our host had a great breakfast for us. It was the farm fresh eggs, like the bacon she bought from another friend on another farm. I mean, everything was, my gosh, delicious. And they had donkeys and chicken. They had animals, which, again, for kids, well, and we enjoyed it too. The animals running around and the chickens running around.
Oh, that's such a lovely experience. I'll definitely get the name of that.
Yeah. And they have 2 lovely little guest houses that they rent out, and they were fabulous hosts. So we'll definitely get you that too.
Yeah.
And I know I keep thinking of things. The Tanner Inn, the highest inn in Britain.
Oh, yes.
We went there too.
Yeah. Wow. You really did get around.
We did. Well, I saw all these things on these shows and I'm like, we're here. Let's go.
Absolutely. Include them. Yeah.
Yeah. And we drove talking about the sheep in the roads. And we were the only car for a really long time on this windy road going up this really tall hill mountain. Weren't really sure we were going the right way. And it almost, the landscape was so interesting because we were in kind of pastures and woodlands, and then it got very barren at the top. It was so cool.
Yeah.
And then the inn just showed up out of nowhere.
I think that road might be one of the roads that gets shot in the winter.
Yes, because they had a snowplow up there.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah.
And we just randomly walked in and ordered a couple ciders, sat down for, I think we were there for maybe 30, 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And we were like, oh, well, we got to get to the farm. And we left. But it was just so cool again. We walked in and all the heads turned towards us because I think they kind of realized. And then we started talking like, okay, why are these random Americans all the way up here at this inn, But again, very quickly, everybody was friendly, and it was a cool experience.
There's going to be far more random Americans going to those places now after this.
I know. Go to the Tanner Inn. You can say you were at the highest elevation inn in Britain. I mean, how cool is that, right?
Exactly.
And then we stopped at Knaresborough, like you had mentioned. I saw the beautiful bridge viaduct.
The viaduct with the train, yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Knaresborough, yeah.
And I think that's another location of Betty's tea room as well. Is it Knaresborough? Or no, Harrogate.
No, it's Harrogate. I was going to say not in Knaresborough. So
they're near each other.
Yeah, the Harrogate Betty's, I believe, is the original one.
And then there's one in York.
And I think there's one in York and there's one in Harrogate. But I think the one in Harrogate may be the original one, the first one.
So we went to the original.
Yes. And I'm sure Sinead was telling me that it's won an award for one of, if not the best afternoon tea in the UK recently.
Cool.
So, and it's one of those. If you go to Harrogate, you go to York, you kind of have to go to bed.
Yep.
Again,
so we did. We checked that off the list and had a ball doing it. And then we were heading down to the Cotswolds, which was always one of Heather's main goals, was to go to the Cotswolds. Yeah. I mean, I don't think I ever knew what it was before she told me about them. But we stopped in Stratford upon Avon before on our way there and did Shakespeare and all that, which was cool. And then, the Cotswolds, like a lot of places, trying to figure out, where do you want to stay? That's tough because there's so many gorgeous places there. I don't know if you can go wrong. I know I read a lot about, different villages, and this is more touristy. This might be more busy. We did end up staying in Burton on the Wada.
Yeah.
We loved it. I know some people said that they thought it was more touristy nowadays, but
it's where we stayed.
Yeah, I found it lovely.
It's basically, you can't go wrong. We've given a kind of breakdown to this village suits this person, or this town suits this person. It depends what you want. But honestly, I just think, let's just say you can't really go wrong with the Cotswolds because it's such a lovely area.
And it's so close to the villages. You can go visit other villages.
We walk.
We did walk. I said after I researched it, I'm like, oh, we've got to walk. Like that is a thing you've got to do in the Cotswolds. And I found an app. I think that was literally called Cotswolds Walk.
Yep.
That was free. Our host also left a little, looked like an ancient a little pamphlet about different walks. So we had both. And we walked out into the wilderness, into the pastures and random farmland and woodland areas. Just the three of us, hardly saw another soul. Walked to Lower Slaughter. Had ice cream at the old mill, which was fabulous.
Yes.
And then walked back. It was so lovely. And I think a very English thing to do, to go take a walk in the countryside. And then the next day we drove around and visited some of the other Stow on the Wald and Bibury.
Yep.
We went to Cotswolds Lavender, which was could spend the whole day there.
Yeah.
Had the lavender ice cream and took lots of pictures.
Yeah.
Again, we could have stayed there forever and been perfectly happy. I think there wasn't a place that we could not have just spent the whole time there and have been happy. I mean, I'm so glad we saw a variety of things. But not one place disappointed. Oh, Snow's Hill. Because I think, wasn't that in Bridget Jones or some movie?
Yes, yeah.
And so, we were trying to find those little movie references.
And the gardens as well, Hidcote Gardens. I don't know if you go in Kifskit. Oh, my goodness.
Every yard is just beautiful.
Yeah, yeah.
And where was
so many thatched cottages and beautiful gardens, and it really is. It's one of those where you kind of you drive around or you walk around going, wow, it can't get any prettier. Oh, it just got prettier. Oh my goodness!
Every little village.
Yeah.
Oh, and I totally forgot. We have a teacher friend of ours who's married to a gal who's British, and her parents live in I want to try to remember this right. Stamford? Is that the county?
Yes, it is. Yes.
And they invited us to visit. So we actually took a random day here and we went to go visit them in Stamford. And again, I don't offend anybody from Stamford, but I don't think that's like a tourist hotspot or anything. But it was, took the opportunity to go see a different part of the country. Yeah. And again, I think that's where we had our best fish and chips, which was completely random. But every little town you drive through, exactly what you said, like, the next one can't just be as cute and charming. Well, yeah, it is.
It is.
And they all had the bunting up for the Jubilee. Yeah. And so we, and the crocheting on the top of the mailboxes. I mean, So we were there during another, pretty exciting time. So that definitely added to the ambiance of everything. Definitely. And then we finally were ready to turn the car in after, almost 3 weeks of driving and dropped it off in Oxford because we wanted to do a little bit more Harry Potter sightseeing and not just to see Oxford. And then that's when the strikes started and we started bobbing and weaving and then spent that last week in London. And then, that's a whole nother story trying to figure out what do you want to see in London? Because
absolutely.
It's endless.
We get asked that all the time. It's London and it's, we spent entire itinerary just talking about London.
Just on London. Absolutely. Yeah. And so that one, kind of like the whole trip, that was almost like a mini trip.
Yeah.
I almost kind of looked at that as a separate part and we made our list of where we wanted to go. And then you look at your days and you go, we can't do it all. No. And I got a map. I got a bigger map of London, just like I had done for the whole country. And I started drawing where everything was. And I think I kind of got that idea from you or on the website or somebody had talked about you got to cluster things
yes, absolutely.
Together.
Yeah. Do things close together and so that you're not spending your whole time jumping on and off tube trains or buses because a lot of places you can see in the same area, but take a day to do it.
You have to plan it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, don't just go around because you can see far more of London if you do it that way, if you plan it that way out. And I think, London, you do need to know this is what I'm going to do. That's what I would recommend.
You have to be definitely more, I think so. Targeted and planned if you're going to go to London.
Absolutely.
But we did Harry Potter World one day. We did go to Windsor and Wimbledon. Becca plays tennis and we're all tennis fans. On your recommendation, we did add Greenwich, which I'm so glad. And Heather, teaching social studies, of course, was excited to have the picture on the Prime Meridian. And then we did as many of the typical London things as we could, knowing that, we were going to miss out on some, but we'll be back someday. So.
I was going to say, do it next time.
That's right. So that was a lot.
You did a lot. I mean, you did a lot. You were there for 4 weeks, and you did. But you had a lovely itinerary. I don't think anything was rushed. You planned it really well. You gave yourself that downtime in Derbyshire where you could have a few days breather. So it was really, really well planned, Rob, how you put it together. So I'm going to ask about packing.
Oh my gosh.
Because that's a big thing, if you're going away for a month, it's like, how did you? So, was there anything that you took that you wish you hadn't taken, and is there anything that you didn't take that you wish you had?
So, packing. I don't know about everybody else out there, but I think packing's an issue in a lot of families. Mm-hmm. I feel like I could throw in, 3 changes of clothing, a toothbrush, and toothpaste, and be totally happy. Heather, on the other hand, and not to be generalization or stereotypical, when I kind of showed her this is the suitcases that we each get, I think the first, again, we were planning back in 2019, so she had a lot of time to think about all of this. But the first time where you go, okay, well, when we started out with a week and you say, here's your suitcase for a week, it's okay. And then by the time you get to now we're going for a month, and you get to use the same suitcase. The there was some stress and some conversations. No, and some words. No. But I think, if you're going for the longer time, and I've seen other people on the website have these conversations again about being strategic. So we were very strategic with spacing out accommodations where we knew we had laundry facilities, which I know a lot of Americans and maybe other people too that have traveled to England, things you learn are the washing machines are smaller. Dryers are not common at all. And if there is a dryer, they don't work very well. They're different systems. So coming prepared with, retractable laundry lines, and so that we hung up laundry to dry several places, and it worked out fine, but you have to kind of know that stuff ahead of time. So that you're planned. And so we spaced out the washing machines, and what we learned was we packed way too many clothes. I mean, we really did. And I think it's just that I think we brought less than we originally thought we needed, because we were like, we can wash clothes. It's going to be okay. But I think there's still that kind of nervousness and panic of, gosh, you're going to be, thousands and thousands of miles away from home, even though you go, they have stores. You can buy stuff there. I still think that security of I'm going to bring everything is hard for a lot of people. So in retrospect, I think we all were like, yeah, we didn't need that many socks, pairs of underwear, you don't. And you get used to wearing the same, who cares? You're not staying any place very long. Nobody knows you wore the same sweatshirt or hoodie for 4 weeks.
Exactly.
Too many pairs of shoes we brought too.
Oh yeah. We found that we took too much. I mean, we had to cater for quite the seasons, because obviously we had the change and we were in Scotland and that, but we still, and I was pretty strict, but I still was like, I've got too much.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a challenge, and you're seasoned travelers, right? So
they still brought stuff that I didn't wear. And I have to say, our hands up, I did buy too many clothes when I was over there, but anyway.
I mean, everywhere, Beckett was fortunate to get some spending money from, grandparents and stuff like that. And, we're thankful. Beckett's big items that he wanted to buy were the occasional snacks, books, and hoodies. The only problem with books and hoodies, they are bulky and heavy. And we actually bought an additional suitcase when we were in London, because we were like, let's just do it. We'll pay the extra $100, which in reality is after a trip like that is nothing. But yeah, we brought too many clothes, and that is something I would definitely recommend thinking about and planning your laundry around that. Stuff that we didn't bring, I don't think we missed anything. And I know we looked at, your recommended packing list on the website. We're always reading other people's experiences on the Facebook group of, what people wish they would have brought. We were prepared for Scotland and the weather. We all had rain jackets, and, we knew layers were the way to go.
Absolutely.
I just think we brought too much stuff. We brought a flashlight and just, all these just little random things that you're like, oh, well, what if we need? What if we need? And again, I think it's hard for you to kind of sometimes let go and then realize if you really need it, you can buy it there.
You can buy it at Sainsbury's or Tesco's.
And toiletries too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Toiletries, absolutely.
And how fun it is to shop where you're traveling and try stuff that is new. Like, we found the best shower gel we've ever used in the entire world, and I think it was Sainsbury's. It was some mint.
Oh yes.
Shower gel that we all loved, and we bought extra and actually brought some home to use for the month afterwards. So you can buy stuff there and save yourself the trouble.
Exactly. So you kind of touched on this before, but I'm going to go back to this. Was there anything that surprised you about the UK that you didn't expect? I know you mentioned about the friendliness of everybody, but
the driving, because I've read many times how nervous people are to take the risk of renting a car and driving. And, everybody knows themselves, so whether you can handle it or not. But I would definitely say, if you feel like you're a confident driver wherever you happen to be in the world, I would say go for it, and you can do it. I felt like the driving there on the, what's the word? Carriageway? Is that the word?
Oh, yes, motorways. The motorways, yes. Yeah.
I was amazed at how well they worked and how, people with the passing and getting over, that doesn't happen all the time here in the States. People were I was surprised by the courteousness. And the roundabouts, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to
just ask about roundabouts.
Where's the bumper sticker on the back of the rental car that says American on board? Excuse me. But I only got honked at once, and I'm sure I made more than one mistake in a roundabout. And people just, I don't know. I'm 52. I've driven a long time here in the States, and I felt that people were very tolerant.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
And I don't know if that's, people who live there, if that's really their experience or not. But as a foreigner, I felt
you can only kind of reflect on your experience.
Yeah,
can you? That's it. So
that surprised me.
And I think that's kind of reassuring for those people who are kind of nervous about the thought of driving. Like I say, it's that preparation is the key.
Yep.
Prepare yourself for it. Go make sure if you used to an automatic, you book an automatic. All those things that you can do to prepare yourself, and just go for it. It's a great way to get around the country. I mean, we love traveling by train, and we do a lot of train travels around the UK. But the reality is, that's about the train strikes. But the reality is that there's just some parts of the country you can't get to unless
absolutely.
You've got a car. So next time, because I know there's going to be a next time, Rob, is there anything you would have done differently? Anything you would have planned slightly, you would have changed, or were you happy with everything as it went?
We were ecstatic with everything. And again, as I see people planning their trips currently on the group, I think we benefited from having 2 years to plan. Our itinerary took so many twists and turns and revisions, even before we met you all and had the itinerary review. I mean, prior preparation, right, prevents bad performance. And so as much reading that you can do and research and be willing to be open to changing things if you find something new and different. And then I think having that whole attitude, and probably was somebody on the Facebook group, or maybe it was even you guys that just said, you don't say goodbye and you don't have regrets. You just go, the next time we come back.
Yeah.
And maybe there will be, and maybe there won't be. But no, we have no regrets whatsoever.
That's brilliant. That's excellent. And it was lovely following your trip, I have to say. So there's one last question I'm going to ask you, which is what I always end the podcast with when I have a guest, is what is the one tip you would give to anyone planning a trip to the UK for the first time?
Oh, that's tough. I would say read. I just say that the preparation, read and research. And I think I was kind of forced into that initially because of the postponement and having the time, unfortunately, during COVID. But reading and, watching shows and documentaries about the place that you want to visit. I mean, Netflix and online, you can find so much. And reading about the history. I mean, even Beckett got into the history of England. I mean, having that instead of I'm going to London, I'm going to go see the stuff in London and da-da-da-da-da. Wanting to be immersive and learn about the place, learn about the culture. I think that's what made it more meaningful for all three of us, instead of just saying, oh, we're going to go to London for a week because we had a little extra money and we're going to go do this. And that's what initially it was, to say that we went to England, we took Beckett to some place, different and out of the country. And then because of misfortunes and then fortunes, it turned into something much more than that. So again, we're lucky that kind of happened and we were forced to do that. But taking the time, find out about the place before you get there, learn as much as you can, and it'll be much more rich for you. And
I've got to say, Rob, we've been so fortunate that you've agreed to come and chat about this today, and share how how it went for you, how you put together the itinerary, all of those experiences that you had, and just listening to you. It's just lovely listening to you talking about your trip. It really is, and I can't wait to go back next year, and I hope that we'll get to hopefully maybe meet you in America. I don't know, but definitely,
you're welcome anytime, Missouri. We've got room for you.
Well, hopefully next year that'll be good. I've got my fingers crossed. But I just want to say a huge thank you, Rob, for everything that you do in the group as well, and helping people out and offering sharing your experiences and knowledge. But also coming on the podcast today and sharing it. We really appreciate it. This has been a brilliant episode, so thanks very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's fun to relive it. We want to keep that memory alive forever, so thanks for letting me spend a little bit of time, I think a lot of time, talking to you about it again. It's fun to see you and talk to you again. And we now have friends, English friends, who are now in Australia, and so glad we got to meet you guys.
Absolutely. No, brilliant. So thanks again so much for this. Rob, brilliant.
Once again, thanks to Rob for sharing his knowledge, enthusiasm and experience of travel in the UK. You will find links to all the places and destinations mentioned in this episode at uktravelplanning.com/episode 18. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on your favourite podcast app. We have tons of UK planning resources and inspiration over on our website at uktravelplanning.com, where you will also find information about our popular UK itinerary consultation service. As Rob also mentioned in this episode, he is a member of our private UK and London travel planning Facebook community. If you're planning a trip to the UK, why not pop over and request to join? Lastly, we would like to thank everyone who supports our work, including via the Tip Your Guide button, which can be found at the bottom of each page on the website. It really means the world to us. That just leaves me to say, until next week, happy UK travel planning.